I saw a very interesting take on Xbox versus PlayStation over the weekend, so let's look at it. Next, I want to talk about this take here that I saw over the weekend from Tae Kim. And Tae Kim is a journalist. He writes for Bloomberg, which is a very large website on business, on analysis of markets and different industries and stuff like that. And he has a take here on Xbox versus PlayStation and which one is doing better this generation, pretty much saying that people are delusional to think that Xbox is doing better than PlayStation 5 this generation, and his only point of reference within these tweets has to do with actual hardware sales. Now, I made a video last week talking about how Xbox is up year over year. It's the only console right now that is up in percentage in the same time period year over year. It's beating PlayStation 5, and I think that is a very good sign for the specific hardware sales when it comes to Xbox Series X and S. But as we know, within Xbox, within the industry as a whole, hardware sales specifically for the PS5 and the Xbox Series X and S is not the only thing that they look at. And specifically for Xbox, it's probably on the lower end of the numbers that they look at to measure their success this generation. We know what they care about more than anything is getting people into the ecosystem through their subscription, no matter how they are getting in their PC, Xbox Cloud Gaming, through Xbox, or any other ways in the future that you're going to be able to join the Xbox ecosystem. So all of these console sales, all this hardware sales where they're doing better than they probably even have expected, since when you look about the Xbox One and how bad that did and how they're gaining a lot more market share in the hardware side of things, I guess it's just like cherry on top of the cake. It's a great thing for them. They obviously want to sell their hardware, but it isn't their main goal with Xbox. And this has been proven multiple times. Phil Spencer has talked about it. In fact, even PlayStation has mentioned this. This is a response from Colt Eastwood where he shows some articles mentioning this. I mean, they've mentioned it multiple times, but you see here, Xbox boss Phil Spencer on the future of gaming. The business isn't how many consoles you sell. And then Sony CEO Yoshida says PlayStation platform should be judged by user count, not hardware sales, while discussing pricing struggles for the PlayStation 5. So it's the amount of people you can get into your platform, to your ecosystem, is what counts more than anything, way more than hardware sales, because of the fact once you're in that ecosystem, you're going to be spending money in their stores, which makes them a lot more money. We know consoles generally, at least at the beginning of the generation, are sold at a loss, and then that loss continues to get smaller until they're starting to make a profit. But his take here has to do everything with hardware sales, and I think it's a pretty bad take, especially from somebody who is a journalist writing for a big website like Bloomberg. He says, if all y'all think Xbox is doing better than PS5 this generation, you aren't paying attention. PS5 still sells out instantly, while Series S and X do not. Also check the disparity of resale prices on StockX. It's not close. Now, when it comes to that, I don't know the entirety of the market. I know here in Canada, at the very least, it is pretty hard to get an Xbox Series X, and it's pretty hard to get it at PlayStation 5. You almost have to be instant once the inventory drops, and that really hasn't changed throughout the entirety of this generation life cycle so far. And then there's this take here, which I think is probably the worst of them all. He says retailers are resorting to discounts and free extra controller bundles to move Xbox Series S consoles. Not a great sign. He uses two websites here that I've never heard of. I don't know how many people are using them to buy consoles. BuyDig, which they say here they're selling an Xbox Series S with an extra controller, so the controller is free. And then Woot.com. Again, I never really heard of this website before, but they were selling the Xbox Series S Fortnite and Rocket League bundle at $279.99, so you're getting $20 off. Now, the Xbox Series S to Microsoft is kind of like the PlayStation 4. The PlayStation 4, Sony is producing more in 2022 as its console to sell and send out in volume and sell at a super cheap price that people are going to go in and just pick up on a whim, impulse buy, always having discounts to just kind of attract the consumer over to the brand to get them in to the PlayStation Network, which is their goal, and then eventually transfer them over to the PS5 in the future. But the Series S, although they're not going to be transferring people over from the Series S to the Series X, like you're not going to have to transfer over going forward, it is the same concept for Xbox. It's that console at a low price will always get slashed, will always get discounts, and they're trying to sell as many as they can. They're probably going to be producing more Series S's over the lifespan of this Xbox generation. In fact, I think Phil Spencer mentioned that as this generation goes on, they are going to be producing more Xbox Series S's. In fact, to be clear, his exact quote was not about producing more, but selling more, saying, I think over the generation, our expectation would be that price really matters and that you would see the Series S sell more. So it's like, again, that console they're just going to produce in mass, give the best price possible and try to push it out as many people as possible as that entry point into the Xbox ecosystem at a low cost. Then it goes down here. The next thing he talks about is it's a fact that customer demand for PS5 is an order of magnitude greater than Xbox Series XS. Talk to any retail store employee about the ratio in customer inquiries. And I mean, he uses 3 examples here. I mean, you could probably go to multiple different retailers. You'll probably get lots of people answering like this, but you can't be certain that everyone is going to say the exact same thing. I'm sure there are some places where the Xbox is selling out faster than the PS5, but they're both out of stock. So, I mean, does it really matter? And then he says here, people are going to lose their minds when Xbox beats Sony in March MPD. My educated guess based on widespread Series XX availability at Walmart this past week. So I believe in the States, at least, Walmart had like a decent amount of Series X that was available. Not realizing Sony already slashed estimates for March quarter last month due to chip shortages. No, losing a couple of months during the slowest time of the year based on a temporary supply chain issue isn't a game changer for the cycle. I know nuance is difficult. So with that being said, this take overall, it's clearly looking only at hardware sales for this generation, which, I mean, you can look at that all you want, and if that's what all you want to compare, go for it. Xbox will never outsell the PlayStation 5 by the end of this generation. It's just not going to happen with their strategy, with their ecosystem, and with the way people are going to be playing games through Xbox. For PlayStation, you have to buy a console. You have to go out and pick up a PS5 to play their first-party games. So naturally, it's going to sell faster. It's going to sell more than a platform where you're not constricted to having to do that to play the games. But what I think is completely wrong about, if you're going to look at Xbox versus PlayStation and do a comparison in the generation, you can't just look at hardware sales, especially if you're someone who writes for Bloomberg, or if you're a journalist, if you're a market analyst. It's not a good faith take in really how the generation is playing out in terms of the success of both Xbox and PlayStation. At the end of the day, both of these consoles, both of these companies are doing extremely well right now. And Xbox specifically, with Xbox Game Pass, it continues to grow. That service is just taking off, and it's going to continue to grow as more games come out. So yeah, I thought this was kind of overall just a ridiculous kind of like take to start like a console war between Xbox and PlayStation 5 without being a fair analysis of the difference between them and the difference in strategies. At the end of the day, I think PlayStation 5 is going to sell more than the Xbox Series X, but it isn't going to be nearly the only thing we need to look at when comparing how these two companies, how these two boxes are performing in this generation. That's it for me, guys. Let me know your thoughts on this. Let me know your thoughts on Take Kim's take. Do you agree with me? Do you agree with him? Do you think hardware is extremely important, or do you think, like I said, it is kind of like the secondary thing that Xbox is looking at when seeing their success throughout this generation? If you enjoyed this video, hit that thumbs up button. If you're new here, you like what you saw, consider hitting that subscribe button. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for your support, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye.